It is time to welcome a new year, a new month, and a new theme for our worship at Tapestry. Fittingly, this month, our theme is renewal. More and more, I hear people talking about a spiral concept of time. That's what I want to talk about this morning. The more I look at it, the more I realize that this spiral concept of time could be a helpful framework when we talk about renewal. And I know talking about different concepts of time sounds really abstract. It's not as complicated as it sounds, though. Most of us take time for granted. We look at our calendars and our clocks. We know that yesterday is past and tomorrow is coming around the corner. And other than this bizarre week between New Year's and Christmas, time is pretty straightforward. Or is it? There are two really primary ways of looking at time throughout human history: cyclical and linear. Cyclical time is sort of like our time for all ages this morning. It emphasizes repetition. It's very much influenced by the natural world, the day-night cycle that regulates our lives, and when we sleep and tell us when it's productive to go about our business. For most of human history, and still in a lot of places around the world, the cycle of seasons absolutely defined life. The earth, the moon, the sun move in repeating cycles. It's not just nature, though. We, too, depend on cycles to measure time. All of our common measurement systems depend on a cycle. 60 seconds to a minute, 60 minutes to an hour, 24 hours to the day. Around and around we go. It seems that if time were linear, we'd use some cumulative measure with a concrete starting place. Calendars sort of do that, but even the oldest of those calendars is relatively recent. Really reliable calendar systems date back about 5,000 years. That means that for 95% of humans' existence, time was cyclical. The lives of agricultural, nomadic, and even urban people were governed by this endless repeating cycle. That's not the world we live in, though, right? We measure time, our days, and maybe even our accomplishments in a sense of linear time. And there are some very real ways that time unfolds that way. For one, it's irreversible. As living beings, we're born, we age, we die in that order. We know about the past, we can't do anything about it. By definition, we don't know about the future. Beyond our personal lives, there's a sense of direction in the universe. Basically, things fall apart. A hot cup of coffee becomes cold, a dead body decays, cars wear out. We can also measure time by counting the number of times the Earth goes around the sun. Like I said, we haven't been doing that for long, but we do know that they add up. So welcome to 2022. More recently in the Western world, as technology begins to grow, especially starting with the Renaissance, there's this sense of expectation that we've laid on to that direction of time and a sense of progress. Onward and upward, bigger and better, year after year, humanity is always improving. And given enough time and technology, all problems can be solved. It was a very comforting thought, even though it's a little mistaken. Even when we know it's dangerous, that positive trajectory is the way most folks see time today. But like I said, more and more, I hear people talking about a sense of a spiral. To me, that model is the most fruitful, both embracing the deep cycles of nature and keeping a sense of responsibility and opportunity for meaningful change. A spiral model combines both of those truths. A spiral can be helpful for us to understand generations. There's little in this world that is as hopeful and fresh as the birth of a new child. Yet we're fooling ourselves if we think that anyone is free from the influences of DNA or the choices of our parents and ancestors. Who they were shows up in us. But we're not completely fated by that background. With a spiral sense of time, we have opportunities to keep moving in the direction of progress, bringing our histories with us, but improving upon them. In our individual lives, we circle the same themes and challenges as the past keeps echoing back. Those challenges and opportunities are often based in pieces of our personality. Year after year, decade after decade, we get to practice becoming more aware and eventually wearing down some of those sharp edges. Those echoes are opportunities for us to make better decisions and to grow into more mature versions of ourselves. Of course, the opposite is also true. We have the freedom and plenty of opportunity to be embittered by those same old challenges, to make worse decisions, and to regress. Individually and collectively, we have choices in how we'll address those challenges. Hopefully, we'll have the wisdom and the depth of heart to make choices that progress in a direction of life. It's not certain, though. We have a choice yesterday, today, and tomorrow. As I said earlier, all this month we're talking about renewal. We'll explore several different strategies for personal renewal. For a lot of us, I know, the most reliable source of renewal is spending some time in nature. That's certainly true for me. Over the years, I've found that the forest in particular is a deep source of comfort. Of course, I'm inspired by those big mountain vistas and the grandeur of the Sierra passes and being out on the ocean. Those are really stark places, though. No one wants to spend a lot of time up at those mountaintops. More and more, I've realized there's a particular comfort to the forest. Robert Louis Steven wrote, "It's not so much for its beauty that the forest makes a claim upon us, as for the subtle something, that quality of air, that emanation from old trees that so wonderfully renews a weary spirit." There's something about the richness of life among the trees and the layers of leaves and needles on the forest floor. In the forest, we see, we hear, we even smell the truth that renewal is the way of the earth. Through seeds that burst and grow and bloom, knowing that heavy snows prune out and eliminate the weak, even forest fires have their role to play in the cycle. But as I find deep comfort in these cycles of nature, more and more with a sense of urgency, as I see the forest change year after year, I'm reminded that we can't take these cycles for granted. Rather than cycling endlessly, significant change is happening. In fact, the current spiral of life around our globe is heading in a pretty bad direction. For the ministers' reading group, several of us recently read the book, Under the Sky We Make, How to Be Human in a Warming World. I highly recommend the book for anyone who has the time. The author, Kimberly Nichols, is a climate scientist, and she talks candidly about coping with global warming from a very human perspective. She offers an invitation to grapple with the difficult reality of climate change, including the sadness at the sense of loss and the overwhelming scale of the problem. What I appreciate most about the book is she has this emotional capacity to be honest without exaggerating or sounding alarmist. As she clearly states, it's warming, it's us, it's bad, we can fix it. I love this clear summary of the solid consensus of the scientific community. It's warming, it's us, it's bad, we can fix it. Fixing it, though, isn't going to happen easily. There's no guarantee that we will fix it. Earlier, when I spoke about the linear concept of time as a misguided assumption, that's kind of what I was referring to. Bigger, better, faster, more is not going to save us. It may, in fact, be our undoing. One of the reasons this book was so impactful for me was how personal it was from the author. She, being very close to my own age, wrote poignantly about this exact moment in history. Kimberly Nichols wrote, "I expect to live long enough to find out. Statistically, I expect to die in 2062 at the age of 84.4. Based on our collective human choices in the next decade, I will die either on a planet stabilized around 1.5 degrees Celsius warmer than the one my ancestors, or on a planet that's already blown past 1.5 degrees Celsius and 2 degrees Celsius limits, on the way to the hellscape of 3 degrees Celsius or beyond." That shook me up. I expect to live long enough to find out. The 2 degrees Celsius limits that you've probably heard of from the Paris Climate Accord allow for still some pretty negative impacts. 2 degrees brings pretty serious drought and storms and rise in sea level. Even with hard work, there will be severe impacts. They'll be challenging, but they will be survivable. I expect to live long enough to find out if we're able to stop it there. If you remember the reading from earlier this morning, the poet Wendell Berry paints a beautiful picture about human potential thriving in lush, verdant, abundant earth in future generations. It's easy to get swept up in the beauty that's the middle piece of that poem. The precarious message of the poem, though, rests in its opening and closing lines. Before describing that beauty, he opens with the quick and very subtle sentence, "If we will have the wisdom to survive." The poem closes with an equally incisive line, "Its hardship is its possibility." It opens, "If we will have the wisdom to survive, to stand like slow-growing trees on a ruined place, renewing, enriching it, if we will make our seasons welcomed here, asking not too much of earth or heaven, then a long time after we're dead, the lives our lives prepared will live here. Their houses strongly placed upon the valley sides, fields and gardens rich in the windows." The poem closes with more beautiful sense of challenge. Barry writes, "The abundance of this place, the songs of its people and its birds, will be health and wisdom and indwelling light." This is no paradisal dream. Its hardship is its possibility. Its hardship is its possibility. This vision that is so very possible will take work and sacrifice and hardship. Whether the message comes from the overwhelming majority of scientists or from a poet, we get the same warning. It's us. It's bad. We can stop it. Government policies need to change. Businesses need to change. Hopefully, we're all pushing in that direction. We can also make significant impacts ourselves. I learned from this book that there are 3 key actions that folks in our Western lifestyle can do to make a difference. In no particular order: get rid of your car, stop eating meat, stop flying. These are big asks. But it's important to name these 3 actions because they're exponentially more important and more impactful than anything else you do for your carbon footprint. Just imagine your finances or your diet. To make big changes, we deal with those big ticket items, right? And if you fly, it's your most intense source of climate pollution. And I know that's hard for a lot of this community to hear. Stop eating meat, get rid of your car, stop flying. Instead of jumping to a quick no, consider what you can do. Which of these is easiest for you? Which could you make progress toward? If completely cutting one of them out is truly impossible, maybe think of half. Government and corporate reform is absolutely necessary. We can start change today, though. Change happens by internalizing the urgency of the climate crisis and accepting personal responsibility, along with seeing other people take action themselves. We can do that as community. That's one of the things that community offers, an opportunity to see each other in action. Nurturing personal renewal isn't just about taking a break or treating ourselves. We'll talk about those things in coming weeks. But renewal is also about aligning our efforts with our values. I believe that there is profound renewal in stepping toward more sustainable ways of living. Speaking of renewal, we know helping others sometimes is a way for us to feel better ourselves. Caring feels good. Giving feels good. What if we expand the idea of helping others to include all our neighbors on this fragile planet? What if by helping, we're not offering a hug or some financial support? What if by helping, we're reducing our carbon footprint? In this great spiral of life, day after day, year after year, over and over again, there are choices to make and actions we take. We're not hamsters on a wheel, running endlessly with no consequences. Neither are we on a one-way rocket toward bigger and better future. Together, season after season, we make choices and take action, slowly, cumulatively, to make a difference. we can help point this earth spiral toward life. And that feels really good to me. Amen.